1896, the height of the Scramble for Africa. European empires, armed with machine guns and arrogance, are carving up a continent. But in the highlands of Ethiopia, a modern Italian army charges into history and is annihilated. Cannons captured, generals disgraced, an entire colonial army destroyed. This wasn't supposed to happen. This is the story of the Battle of Adwa, the day an ancient African empire, led by a brilliant emperor and empress, defeated a modern European power and secured its freedom. Subscribe to Teduent, where the underdogs of history get their victory. Today, the Battle of Adwa, the stunning victory that became a beacon of hope for a continent and a nightmare for an empire. The late 19th century, Europe was in a frenzy of conquest. At the Berlin Conference of 1884, European leaders drew lines on a map, carving an entire continent into colonies without any regard for the people living there. From the Cape to Cairo, European armies advanced. But one nation stood apart: Ethiopia, an ancient Christian kingdom with a history stretching back millennia. A tapestry of noble houses, formidable warriors, and a deep-rooted sense of independence. It had never been colonized. At the head of this empire were Emperor Menelik II and his powerful wife, Empress Taitu Betul. Menelik was a brilliant diplomat and modernizer, patiently stockpiling modern weapons from across Europe. Taitu was a shrewd strategist and a fierce anti-colonialist who owned vast northern territories and commanded her own army. Together, they were a formidable political force, determined to protect Ethiopia's sovereignty against the newest colonial player in the region, the Kingdom of Italy. The conflict began not with a bang, but with a comma. In 1889, Italy and Ethiopia signed the Treaty of Wuchale. The Amharic language version, signed by Menelik, stated that Ethiopia could use Italy's services for foreign relations. But the Italian version, sent back to Europe, stated Ethiopia must do so, effectively making it an Italian protectorate. When Menelik discovered the deliberate mistranslation, he understood it for what it was: a declaration of colonial intent disguised as diplomacy. Menelik II formally denounced the treaty. Empress Taitu, a powerful voice in the court, was instrumental, urging a hard line against the Italians. She declared, "I have no fear. I spit upon them." Italy, feeling its prestige as a new European power was on the line, refused to back down. Prime Minister Francesco Crispi, driven by colonial ambition, chose war over diplomacy. He believed a swift military victory would force Ethiopia into submission. In September 1895, Menelik issued the Imperial Proclamation of Mobilization. "Enemies have now come, crossing the sea, to destroy our country and change our religion. Therefore, arm yourselves." From every province, a massive feudal army answered the call. Over 100,000 warriors, from noblemen on horseback to peasants on foot, converged on the capital, bringing their own weapons and supplies. It was the ancient power of Ethiopia, now armed with modern rifles. The Italian commander, General Oreste Baratieri, was a veteran of colonial wars. He advanced into Ethiopia with around 17,000 men, a mix of Italian soldiers and Eritrean auxiliaries known as Askari. He was supremely overconfident, dismissing Menelik's force as a disorganized tribal horde that would collapse at the first sight of European discipline. Pressured by Rome for a glorious victory on a budget, Baratieri pushed deeper into the treacherous mountainous terrain of Tigray. His supply lines stretched dangerously thin. By late February 1896, the two armies faced each other near the town of Adwa. Baratieri's army was exhausted and running out of food. He received a telegram from Rome goading him into action. Fearing disgrace, he made the fateful decision to launch a surprise attack. He he planned a complex night march, splitting his army into 3 columns that would advance simultaneously through the mountains and converge on the Ethiopian camp at dawn. Baratieri's plan collapsed before the first shot was fired. In the darkness, hindered by shoddy maps and the labyrinthine terrain, the 3 Italian brigades became hopelessly lost. The central column collided with the right, causing chaos and confusion. The left brigade, under General Albertone, marched far ahead of the others, blindly walking into the heart of the Ethiopian position, completely isolated and unaware of its dire situation. As the sun rose on March 1st, Ethiopian scouts reported the unbelievable news. The Italian army wasn't attacking as one, but was scattered across the valleys in vulnerable, isolated columns. At his command post, Menelik consulted with Empress Taitu and his top generals. Initially hesitant to attack on a holy day, Taitu urged him to strike. Menelik gave the order, and the mountains erupted as 100,000 warriors descended upon the fragmented Italian army. General Albertone's brigade was the first to be hit. Swarmed from all sides, his Eritrean askaris fought bravely but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Ethiopian forces, including warriors under the command of Ras Makonnen, unleashed relentless rifle fire from the high ground. In a matter of hours, Albertone's column ceased to exist. He was captured and his command was annihilated. Hearing the sounds of battle, the other Italian brigades attempted to advance, only to be met by a fresh wave of Ethiopian forces under Menelik's personal command. The battle devolved into a series of isolated, desperate fights across several miles. The Italian soldiers, exhausted from their night march and fighting uphill, were no match for the highly motivated Ethiopians fighting on their home terrain. Command and control completely broke down. Adwa was an unprecedented victory. For Italy, it was a national humiliation. The government collapsed and riots broke out. For Ethiopia, its independence was guaranteed, recognized by a stunned Europe. But the impact was global. Adwa became a blazing symbol of black resistance, inspiring early Pan-African movements and proving that European colonialism was not an invincible force. A victory won with rifles, strategy, and an unbreakable will to remain free. Subscribe to Teduent. Next, the Taiping Rebellion, the deadliest civil war you've never heard of. The Battle of Adwa was a singular moment when an ancient African lion roared, and the hunters of Europe were forced to retreat. It proved that a people united in the defense of their homeland are a force that can humble any empire.